angels, welcome to my channel. I know so many of you have been wanting to start a clothing brand for a while now, and this year is the year that you finally do that. And I also know that the thought of spending thousands on inventory and samples and just not knowing a lot about the design process and what it takes to start a clothing brand has been holding you back. So no fear, that's why we're here. In this video, we're gonna go over how to start a clothing brand, the things that I need you guys to consider that you probably aren't, and also how to do it without any inventory. If you're new here, my name is Vanessa. I'm the face behind St. Venus, which is a women's clothing brand that I started about 6 years ago, and I was exactly like you, searching wherever I could, trying to find out how to do this thing. And since then, I've grown her to multiple six figures, multiple years in a row. I also have a marketing background, and I recently completed a Goldman Sachs small business program. So I promise you the information in this video is worth it. It is a combination of not only my experience, but my background, and industry leaders have taught some of this material that I'm going to be sharing with you. So starting off strong with your brand foundation and your brand identity. So the first part of this is really going to be your mission and your values. And essentially, what does your brand stand for? You have to know exactly what it is because that's going to really influence all of your decisions. We'll also want to consider our target audience. So this is going to be both their demographics and their psychographics. They're both equally as important. And we're all very familiar with demographics, things like age, location, income, right? Those would all be demographics. But psychographics, that is their interests, their hobbies, their wants, their needs, their lifestyle. You want to be able to understand and know all of these things about your customer to be able to create a product that they want to buy and actually fits into their lifestyle. You want to consider the clothing category that your brand is going to fall into. So you can sell maybe basics like a Uniqlo, maybe you're selling loungewear and activewear like St. Venus, maybe you're selling swimwear or streetwear or denim. Be clear on the category that your brand falls into because different categories require different things from brands to be able to communicate to their customers. Also think about where you land on a price point like spectrum. Is it going to be more accessibly priced, mid-tier, premium, or is it going to have a luxury price point? Now, depending on what you choose, the fabrics that you choose, and the price point of your products also would need to reflect and match the category you're putting your brand into. So now moving into brand identity, this is where we have things like colors and logos and your brand name and all like the fun stuff. So with this, we'll start with logos. There are different types of logos that you can choose from. We're all familiar with icon logos like Nike and Apple. There are also wordmark logos like Google or Disney, and we also have things like a lettermark logo, which are things like McDonald's, St. Venus. So these are the different variations of what your logo can look like, and you can choose to have a combination of these. You can choose to have different types of logos that you put on different parts of your packaging, on different parts of your website. It's really up to you. Now, when it comes to choosing your brand name, this is where I need you guys to be extremely, extremely careful and really go and watch my How to Start a Business video where I go over the legal business technical side of starting a business, things like forming your LLC, choosing a business name, trademarks, bookkeeping. All of that is important, but particularly the section where I'm talking about your brand name and I'm going over trademarks because this is a mistake that I made and it has cost me nearly $70,000 when it comes to like legal fees, lost inventory, rebranding, and it's not a mistake that I wish on any of you. So please, please, please watch that video, particularly the brand name section. So now let's figure out what the market gap is. You know exactly who your brand is, who it's for, but is there a need, right? Can you justify why your business should exist beyond you want it to exist? Is this something people have been asking for? Is this something that another brand is not doing well, that you could do better? Is this something that another brand is doing well, but you can do it differently? Is this targeting a group that is often overlooked when it comes to clothing? For example, we have brands that are creating clothing, particularly for women who are 6 foot and up, right? Do you have a special about your brand, and your product is going to be that glue that just fills the gap in the market. Also, within the category of the market gap, you want to study the giants in your industry, study local competition, and you want to find out and list what they're doing well, what they're doing poorly, what are their customers saying, what do their reviews on their site say is an issue with their items that, with yours, okay, I'm gonna make sure I fix that. What is something that people say they love the brand? How can you integrate that into how you develop your brand? You also wanna study brands within your core customers' ecosystem. So don't just look at other clothing brands. Look into the sister brands or the complementary shopping items that this core customer would be buying, and see how they're speaking to this customer, because you want to feel familiar, right? You want to feel like you can easily integrate into brands that they've loved for years and years and years, even though you're brand new. So this is definitely my favorite part, product strategy and design. I always recommend that you have a hero item to start. You want to be known for something, because remember the quote, a jack of all trades is a master of none. So you want to be known for something, and you want to have silhouettes and styles that are easily repeatable. That way people can identify you when they're scrolling, when they're shopping, when they're out and about. They can see somebody from the back walking a block away and know that that's St. Venus. I recognize that. Or they can see an Instagram reel and think to themselves, this feels like insert brand name here. Now, the devil's in the details, so you want to make sure that you are researching things like finishes and trims and fabrics and fabric weights and stretch, and there's so much minute things that go into constructing even the simplest of garments, and you want to make sure that you are well versed in this and that you're working with a manufacturer, and we'll get into that in the next section, that is even more knowledgeable than you. But you don't want to go in there blind and then just automatically assume that they should know what they're doing. No, they're going to follow whatever instruction you give them. So it's important that you take the time and you research some of these things yourself, or have reference pictures. And then you also want to think about what your size range is going to be. Typical sizes are, small, medium, and large, but you may want to consider having extended size ranges. Sizing and fabrics and all of these details can get pretty tricky, and the more mistakes that are made, the more expensive corrections become, and the more samples you'll need to order, and it all just becomes kind of like a headache if you're not working with the right business partners in the right factories, which leads me into sourcing and manufacturing. So when it comes to sourcing and manufacturing, you have a few different options. We have the more traditional options of buying samples from manufacturers overseas or domestically, but those tend to be pretty expensive, around like $100 to $400 a sample, depending on where you're getting it made, depending on what you're getting made. And then when it comes to the bulk inventory, you have to order hundreds and hundreds at a time, and that can get very expensive very quickly. And then it's also like, where are you gonna store all this inventory? You will have boxes stacked up all around you, and if you watch any of my previous videos, if you watch any of my blogs, you will know how much inventory management is the bane of my existence. So that's why I'm so excited to share with you guys Tapstitch, which has made starting a clothing brand without any inventory so much easier and accessible. So if you're unfamiliar with Tapstitch, essentially it is a print-on-demand company, but what they do differently is that they have hundreds and hundreds of trendy, relevant styles, from washed effects, from hoodies, from denim, and they have absolutely no minimums. So you can essentially start your clothing brand with a singular item. You can order a small quantity, that way you have things on hand, and you're able to fulfill customers. You're able to use that product on hand for marketing, for promotions, send out in PR packages. You're able to do so much because they give you that flexibility by not requiring minimums, and also giving you so many high quality fashion options to choose from. You can fully see the mock-ups that you're designing on their website when you create an account. And if you want absolutely no inventory, you're able to connect your Tapstitch account to your Shopify account, and you can showcase the product design on your site. When a customer purchases it, Tapstitch will automatically send it to them. What's also amazing is they have both international and US fulfillment centers. So if you want to expedite the shipping time, you can also filter the product categories by US fulfillment only, and then you will see the available options there. What I'm also really excited for myself to try and for you guys to consider is the sampling process. You can order these sweatshirts or any of the products from Tapstitch and be able to build your own fabric library off of this service and this platform. And it is a lot more affordable to do that than to order samples internationally and pay probably 100 plus for a singular sample, and the alternative of Tapstitch is paying around $30 altogether. So I want to thank the team over at Tapstitch for not only sponsoring this video, but also for giving me a link that I can share with you guys so you can save 10% off your first orders, and a $20 credit will also be applied to your accounts when you sign up using the link in the description, and I'll also have it linked in the comment section for you. I cannot wait to see your designs and hopefully have you guys start clothing brands ASAP. So moving on, we're gonna go to sales channels. Like I mentioned before, I mentioned Shopify, which is a great tool that can be used in tangent with Tapstitch, but there are other sales channels that you can consider for your clothing brand. And by sales channel, I do mean anywhere that you promote your clothing, right? That people are able to discover and find out more about your brand and potentially shop. So that is social media, that is your custom website, using something like a Shopify. That is pop-up shops. That would also be maybe a brick and mortar store. And something that I did earlier on in my clothing brand career was I went into a local clothing store and I asked them if I can have a few spots on the shelves, and we did a little profit split that way. So that got more eyes and customers on my brand, and in terms of the business owner, she got more inventory to sell in her clothing store. So it was a win-win situation. So definitely consider that. You don't need to own your own clothing store to be in a physical brick and mortar. You can absolutely work out something like that with local boutiques or clothing stores in your area. So last but certainly not least is going to be promotion. How you promote your brand is probably the most important thing on this entire list, because if you do all of this work and you're not able to get your brand out there, then you've done it for essentially no reason. So you want to start promoting your brand now. Before you even have a brand, start promoting it now. Start promoting that you want to start something. People love to support their peers. People love to support someone who is just one step ahead of them. So with you, starting a clothing brand, that's one step ahead of somebody who doesn't want to start a clothing brand. People want to support you in your journey. You also want to be personable and you want to engage with the community that you're building, because that's essentially what matters. Building a community that surrounds your brand versus just building clothes and then shoving it in people's faces. You want to give them a product that they feel like they're a part of, because that essentially will be promotion in and of itself. If you're asking customers for their feedback, this is also a great way to not only get more engagement on your posts, but also get more eyes on your brand, because you will get a lot more reach by asking interactive questions that people can respond to, and you'll also benefit on the brand side because you'll find out what people want, what people don't want, what colors they're looking for, and everything they suggest you may not be able to implement, and that's okay. But you want to ask, because getting feedback is promotion, documenting the journey is promotion, photo shoots and product images is not the only way to promote your brand. Sometimes promoting your brand is promoting the lifestyle behind the brand versus simply the product that you're selling. So that's everything you'll need to be able to start a clothing brand with absolutely no inventory, and a clothing brand that is memorable, that people actually want to buy. So if you watched all the way to the end, then drop this emoji in the comment section, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.